Can you tell me what intellectual honesty means?
For me, honesty is a real priority, and especially intellectual honesty. So your purpose in discussing with someone else some idea or other. And I think that a lot of people mistake that purpose, and I think what they're interested in is, I'm going to win this argument. I'm going to be right. Everyone's going to see me win the argument, not the other person, or whatever. And you'll get some people, and especially guys will do this, where you'll begin to say what you're going to say, and they will interrupt you by just speaking loudly. And so they'll say, well, the thing that... And then when you quiet down, they go back to a normal tone because they've shut you up. And those people, of course, you can't discuss with because they're not interested in what you have to say. They're interested in hearing their own voice. And so I think that the purpose of discussion is that the person lays out their ideas, you lay out your ideas, and then you look for some kind of mesh between them. If they make an argument that makes, and this is the kind of holy grail of discussions, is an argument that makes perfect sense to you, but you never thought of it before. And so you're like, wow, a whole piece of the world has opened up for me here. A little bit like when I was driving one time, and I was coming up on a flashing red, flashing yellow light. And I'm colorblind, so I didn't know there was a flashing red, flashing yellow. I just saw it was a flashing light. And so my friend said, you better slow down, it's a flashing red. And just the way he said that, red, not light. And so I was driving through and I said, is there more than one color of flashing light? And he said, well, yeah, it's flashing red and flashing yellow. I've been driving for 10 years. I had no idea that was the case. And so suddenly my world was different than the world it was before. Like something had changed. And that's what you're looking for in a discussion. So when someone comes to you and they say, you know, I was thinking the other day about, what the purpose of existence might be, and I think it's this. And they lay it out for you. And they've thought about it, and they have a logical argument. And you listen to it, and you say, well, there's a flaw in your argument, and it's this. And then you tell them what the flaw is, and they, okay, yeah, I can see that. But what if I change it this way? Does that make more sense? And you're like, yeah, because my argument was this, and from what you say, it invalidates what I was thinking. So therefore, let's put these ideas together and come up with the best idea of all. Or let's say your ideas are utter garbage and aren't very well thought out, and I won't bother incorporating them into what I think. So what you're seeking for is you're seeking for the best idea, and you should be disinterested in this. And so if you're having a discussion with someone and you come up with an idea that makes their argument better than yours, you have an ethical responsibility to tell them that idea, to support their argument. If your argument is unsupportable, that has nothing to do with your ego. That has to do with a truth problem. And so if your argument's unsupportable, at some point you're going to realize this, hopefully, and you're going to say, I withdraw all that stuff that I said because now that I look at it clearly, it doesn't make any sense. And so that's actually what you're looking for in a discussion. Now, people, of course, this is what I call intellectual dishonesty. People will pretend all sorts of things for, like, ego reasons or whatever. And so, for instance, if you're having a discussion with someone, then they can try to distract you by saying, well, people should be kind. I don't like the abrupt way that you're speaking. And you say, okay, so suddenly now we're not talking about meaning or purpose or something like this. Instead now we're talking about my way of speaking, which is an entirely different discussion. So let's set my way of speaking aside for now, finish our discussion, and then go back if you still have interest in our way of speaking. But of course they brought up the way of speaking to deflect you from what you're actually discussing, which means you were probably coming pretty close to striking a nerve with that person, and they were getting unsure and insecure, and they're trying to manipulate you. So that is what I call intellectually dishonest. That is disingenuous. And there are lots of people who do that kind of thing. There's people who will pretend they don't know what you're talking about. And so I was having a discussion one time with this guy. And And I asked him to describe this like force that sits in his life that he thinks of as really important. And he said, well, what do you mean? I said, well, and I described it again using the same terms that he used and he would understand. Well, I'm not sure I know what you mean. And I said, okay, that's enough. Like, you know what I mean, you know what I'm talking about, and now you're playing games because you don't want to talk about it. So if you don't want to talk about something, you just say, I don't want to discuss this. I don't want to discuss this with you. I don't want to discuss this right now. I'm not interested in this topic anyway. I don't like the way you're speaking to me. There's a whole bunch of different ways that you can cope with that matter without pretending you don't know what somebody means. And that is manipulation, and that is unfair and dishonest.